And I just love how James Mennie of the Gazette has headlined this topic. Will female asylum seekers become the CAQ Quebec's latest existential threat? Good afternoon. Jim
Good
Mennie,
afternoon.
reporter, columnist, and editor at the Montreal Gazette. Just let me get your titles in there.
Well, yeah, they're pretty big. It's like I'm like a member of royalty. No, listen, it's already happening, right? We just heard the news with Jason. I mean, you've got the two leadership contenders for the CAQ who are saying this cannot stand. You've got Paul Saint-Pierre-Plamondon of the Parti Québécois, who's also saying, who in his clip is saying, well, he doesn't consider, the reality. The reality, the financial realities are not a factor, and he knows that. As a guy who studies at McGill in Oxford, he knows that this is an issue of law, and the law is clear on this. It's discriminatory because they're going after women who need daycare if they want to work. They are being focused on, and it's illegal. Okay, so the huffing and puffing, whatever, even as redoubtable a political figure as Pierre Poilievre, who didn't make it in the newscast, but I'll tell you, I've got a tweet right in front of me, Trudie, and he's saying he opposes the Supreme Court judgment. And he says the government of Quebec was right to contest the decision of the Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court on this whole issue. The thing is, Pierre Poilievre is polling somewhere between zero and oblivion in Quebec. I don't know. All that said, there is a reality. Justin Trudeau's decision to stick his face into the immigration system and turn it into sort of like this kind of, I don't know, rainbows and unicorns and whatever, is a disaster. And people's lives have turned upside down because of it. But the fact of the matter is they're here. And the other factors that we don't hear about, Trudy, quite apart from the political factors, the usual suspects spouting off the usual slogans, is there's a great little story in my press today. I don't know if you discussed it on the show. For the second year in a row, more people have died in Quebec than were born. And this doesn't look like this trend is going to go away. We need people, if only to do all those icky jobs that Quebecers wouldn't touch with a barge pole. So yeah, is it going to be easy to settle? Absolutely not. But, and I know, I think a lot of our listeners know what's going to happen here. Whoever winds up running the show, either now or after October, certainly if it's one of the populist governments, if it's a PAC or a CAQiste, they will, adopt a law specifically targeting this. They'll wrap the notwithstanding clause around it, and that's how they get around everything. They'll invoke closure if they have to, and that's it, blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing. We have all these issues which are all connected, and nobody, certainly in Quebec, has got the wherewithal, the sort of oversight to say, no, we got to look at the big picture here, and we've got to figure out how to do this, and maybe rethink some of our priorities, which, might not please some picture bylines over at Québécois, but my philosophy has always been too bad. They used to maybe get people elected. They don't anymore. So you know what? Go your own path. But quite frankly, Trudie, the young woman who created this whole legal challenge is in fact doing the province of Quebec a favor. She's pointing out that whether you like it or not, what you like is irrelevant. Whether you like it or not, the fact is we need people like her and more people like her as time goes on. So, you want refugee claimants around, asylum seekers around the country, fine, that's marvelous. Take it up with Ottawa. But in the meantime, just dial it back a bit. And, the whole idea that it's us against them, that's getting so threadbare, especially now in a world where if more than ever before, we need to be working together rather than against each other.
Yeah, that's true. And I also think that there's a way to handle this without having to resort to this, threat of upholding the rule with the use of the notwithstanding clause, because so many people don't like the notwithstanding clause being used to support laws, that work against the Anglophone community, So first to turn around and embrace that and say to the government, you go with that notwithstanding clause, I think is a little disingenuous. Anyway, the point that I was, working towards is it's a money thing. This is a money question. Yeah. This is the cost of those kids in subsidized daycare.
Yep.
Quebec has been wailing away at Ottawa for several years about the cost of the Roxham Road crossers. You know, when we had Roxham Road crossers coming in, throngs of them, hundreds, and saying to the feds, the border is your responsibility. It's porous. These people need provincial services. You got to give us more money for provincial services. And to some degree, the feds have agreed, and they have gotten a little bit more, not anywhere near what they wanted. But I think that's in this category. If it's too much of a burden on Quebec taxpayers, then you go to the feds. You say, you're taking too long to process refugee claims. We need money to subsidize our daycare. What were they saying? 6,000 kids in this category in our system? There you go.
But here's the thing: if we speak if we're speaking Canadian, this is a national, not as opposed to a national in Quebec. This is a national issue. So you got to drag Ottawa into this, and there has to be a national policy, and maybe we'll get one. Who knows? But in the meantime, it's just more of the same dog whistling rhetoric. You've got Christine Fréchette basically saying, well, the children of Quebecers should have the priority here. Don't tell me you're not, blowing on your dog whistle so hard you're going to have a stroke. So, it's like everyone just, like I say, take a deep breath, work together. Let's get this figured out and move on. But right now, because of the toxic environment that's been created by 8 years of CAQ government, I don't see that happening anytime soon.
We are, folks, going to be talking about the daycare ruling by the Supreme Court in just a few minutes. So what do they say? Lock and load? That'll be coming up. But first, you're right. You're right. I should have chosen another expression. I meant, lock and load your arguments because you're going to call me.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
514-790-0800 to call or text. First, though, James, before I let you go, we had an announcement about the next budget come out of Quebec. Any brave predictions?
Well, here's the thing. You're not going to get a $500 check, that's for sure. It's not going to be an electoral budget simply because they're doing this before the CAQ has before we actually have an official premier. And it's kind of crazy because this is what it's like. Everything is on autopilot. And this whole idea, this expression, fin de regime, it's exactly what's happening. So here's Aaron Girard's going to turn around and he's going to say, well, we'll just keep the money going to keep the system going, whatever and ever, and then we'll see what happens in October. Whoever's running the joint in October can make up their own mind. We'll probably have to have an emergency economic update. But you know what? Here's the thing. I don't know if you've been watching the markets today. They're checking the news. The economic news out of the States is just terrible. And between that and the war and the fact that Trump has no idea how to run either the economy or the war, things I think will get worse before they get better. I wish we had a premier who actually, cares about the job and has some vision of what to do, because honestly, we're subject to so many factors internationally and nationally. I think a lot of our listeners are going to start feeling the pinch, and they'll be feeling it sooner rather than later.
And on that cheery note, thanks, James Mennie.
And have yourself a great weekend.
Unmistakably Canadian.
It's the music that raised you.
The artists raising the bar.
Hi, this is Brian Adams.
Hey, my name's Brett Emmons. I'm from the Glorious Sons.
Hi, I'm Nelly Furtado.
Made in Canada. The station that champions Canadian music.
Loud, proud, and all yours.
No passports required. Just press play.
Tap into Made in Canada now on iHeartRadio.ca
or the free iHeartRadio app.